So I landed my first job as an MTN recharge cards distributor. It sounds luxurious, but it was just a bicycle myself. I ride the bicycle from one vendor to the other to sell recharge cards. What actually pushed me into working was that my mom was not getting me all the things I wanted. And not because she didn't want to get them for me, but there wasn't enough to get me. So I wanted to get my stuff myself. And so I decided to start working. So I started working by distributing these cards from vendor to vendor, while saving up for school. And so that is how I started the hustle. Then from there, I started working at Pioneer Food Cannery as a factory hand. They have the stages. They have the Goro boys, we have the casual workers, and then we have the permanent workers. And the interesting thing was I never went in as any of them. I went in as someone who just was among the lot. And that is where the real hustle started. I had to wake up at 3 a.m. because the bus leaves at 4. I had an hour to prepare for work. And I remember once the bus left me. So I had to walk from Tema, Community 11 to Tema New Town to go to work, get to work and go to face the buffoonery in the workplace. And I mean, it was a struggle. And sometimes I had to go off food. As young as I was a teenager then. But then it didn't discourage me from working. So I continued until I went to school. Then after school, I went to African University of Communications, AUCC. That is where I got into journalism. So from Pioneer Food Cannery, I also got another job as a PR for a medical company. Not really a company, but like a setup office. There they were into this Chinese products where you can check your weight, you can check your diet, those kind of things. So I was just working for my mom's friend. She realized that I had too much potential to be kept in that place. I had to move from one place to the other, just trying to settle in. At that time, I hadn't really made up my mind as to what to do, whether I wanted to settle full-time to journalism or into any other thing. But because I came from a home of home cooks, I always had this entrepreneurial spirit in me. But then I wasn't settled there yet. I still needed some source of income because I was somebody who was driven by getting things for myself, not from anybody else. And my mom also trained me in such a way that you do not get things you didn't earn. So she wouldn't give you things easily. You have to work for it. Maybe if you want to get her bag or her slipper, you need to have done all the chores, being a good girl over the night before you can get it. Even that was difficult. So I grew up with this mentality that I had to work for myself all throughout my life. And so after journalism school, I was at home, I wasn't working, and I wasn't getting the things I really wanted, like maybe my financial freedom. And so I decided I was pushed to work. So I started working for a friend who owned a medical shop. She sold medical drugs, Chinese tea, those, those drugs, those things that were used by people who were watchful of their health and weight and all that. So my first paycheck, I don't really remember, but what I used it for was I took out my tithe, gave my mother some amount, and I saved the rest for school because I really wanted to continue my education. I also bought my first dress from that money, something I really cherished because I felt it was something I had earned. That feeling alone gave me some satisfaction that yes, I could also work and get my own money and then get the things I wanted, which I'd been craving for a very long time. So that spurred me on to work harder, get a better job and get more pay. And so my aim was to get towards financial freedom. It's always been my desire. And so moving forward, I kept moving from one place to the other, still hustling, trying to get a job. I was moving from event to event with a friend who had some cliques with people who organize programs. So we go for programs. I help with the customers, the clients, people will be patronizing the program. And then I met someone who introduced me to the multimedia group. And that's where I had an attachment as my first job as a journalist. Though I'd had training, I didn't really know what I was in for until I got into the job. I got in as an intern to Multimedia Group Limited as a reporter. When I got into the job, it was where I had to put in my friendly skills, if I should put it that way, because at that time I had no interviewing skills, nothing. I had to learn on the job. I just only had theory. And so as the job went on, I didn't even know I was being paid. I thought I was doing an internship, but not knowing they're paying me some amount of money, and all that money was into my account. I didn't know until I had finished my internship and they told me, oh, I should check my bank. And that there was some money that I went there and I saw some money. I was about, I think 1,000 cedis then. That was accumulated over a period of 1 year. I was very excited. In fact, you know, when you have money that you didn't think it was there, and then all of a sudden you realize that that money is there, you are filled with some joy. I don't know how to express that feeling, but it was fun. But I was still not satisfied because I felt there was more I should do. Then I kept going, and that was when I had my first story. I did an interview with this ace journalist, Gifty Auntie. She told me about her life story, and that was my first story that went on the Graphic Showbiz front page. I interviewed her and she was telling me about her life story, and that got me interested in people's personal stories, how they made it and came that far. That pushed me to do better in my journalism field. But I encountered some challenges as well. It wasn't all rosy being a journalist. Here in Ghana, it's very tough. It's a lot of competition and it's a lot of hard work. And talk of them working for multimedia, the arguably best media house in Ghana. I mean, it's a tough world out there. There were times I was put off. There were times I cried. I wouldn't say I had bitch bosses, but I had tough bosses who will push you to every length. One of those bosses is Ifya Pokia. She's known as the Vim Lady. She will push you like no man's business. There are times you go out. I remember my first assignment. I was supposed to go for an ADB assignment. They were then inaugurating the Farmers' Day. And I went there during the events, during the program. We're supposed to have interviews. None of the bosses or none of the participants wanted to be interviewed by a journalist. So they had a room where they were going to take their refreshments, and then a few people outside where the journalists were. But whenever I cast my mind back to going to the office without any interviews, my heart skipped a beat, and I knew I had to get something done. So I paved my way into their reception, where it was, tightly guarded, that you couldn't enter. There was no way you could enter. So I had to devise a way to enter into the reception. First of all, I told the guy there that, my sister was one of the caterers there and she had sent me to bring something. And so I was supposed to go. He asked me what, and I told him, she told me to go get an information from someone, bring something, then take a tray to somebody else just to get me a ticket into the place and get my interview. I finally got inside. When I got inside, it was very, I'll say frightening, or I don't know how to put it, but it wasn't easy to go into a room full of big people in quotes and then don't know where to turn because all eyes are on you. But then I managed my steps and then I walked towards the ADB boss at the time, Ibrahim Adam, and then I went for an interview. I looked at him straight in the eye. He looked back. I was shivering, but you wouldn't see it. I told him, boss, look, I'm going to do this interview. Whether you like it or not, you have to give me one. I can't go back without one. He looked at me and said, you are daring. I said, I don't care what you call it, but you have to talk to me. And that was how I got my first interview. And that was what spurred me on to become bold in my field. That is the mark that they put inside you. So after that, into journalism, I've been practicing on the multimedia platform for about 7 years now. Into production, I go into mainstream production. I do the main news at 6 a.m. and then the midday news sometimes at noon. I produce the biggest news anchor in Ghana now as Efia Pokia, Vim Lady. And then other ones too. I share content for the Joy News platform as well. Now, after this step, I realized that there was only one source of income at the time. And there were other needs I had to fulfill. So I work at multimedia, but I had other needs. My income is not enough. I can't say exactly how much, but I had growing needs. And in my field of work, you come to a point where you get off favors. Or if I should say that there's a point where you get men coming at you. The media industry is all about the optics, how you look, how you present yourself, especially if you're a girl or a woman. When you're doing that, you need enough to take care of yourself, your body, your hair. I do natural hair, and men, if you need to look good, you need to keep this on point every time. So I needed another source of income. And also, I thought about my education. I needed to continue it, do my master's, and also other trainings that I needed to do to better myself, make myself more competitive on the job. So I birthed the Esi natural fruit juice. I started, because I'm coming from a home of home cooks, it came naturally to me. And in my workplace, we come to work early. You know, you come to work, sometimes people don't eat at home. They come, they want to get food, they have to run here, rush there. So I found it as a need to, feel. So I decided to do the fruit juice business. And that also, apart from bringing in another source of income, it also brought in another challenge. Or if I should say, another challenge for me to surmount. Because combining the media work and doing fruit juice production is hell. It's a hell lot of, so much demanding. I go to work at 4 a.m. I have to get to work at 4 a.m. I have to wake up at 2 a.m. every day, from Monday to Sunday, 2 a.m., fix myself, get ready for work at 4 a.m. Now, I have only one day off in a week, that is on Saturdays, and that is my production day for fruit juice. And so I literally have no time to even have fun sometimes. So I have to manage this in between. But then when I think about how it's going to fulfill the other, my other needs, then I know that, I'm not doing that in vain. So the multimedia, great, it's helping me do this job. But then the fruit business too is another way, is another side to it that actually awakens the entrepreneurship spirit inside me. Now, it helps me to juggle my time between work and then the business, and also not to clash, which is a very difficult thing to do as a woman. Sometimes people ask me, so how do you do it? Sometimes I ask myself, how do I even do it? Because it's not easy. You wake up at that time, and juice can take 7 to 8 hours to prepare, because I'm not doing just one thing. I'm doing about 4 different types of juices, and I'm the only one, because it's a startup, it's at the basics, and its teething problems is very challenging. I do that, and I sometimes I wake up at 2 a.m. and I go to bed at 11 p.m. or even 12 or even 1. It's crazy. Then, so what I do sometimes is, when I have to go to work at 4 a.m., I leave the house around 3. Sometimes I have to get to the market and buy my supplies. And then I send it through an Uber to the house and then get to work. Then I start working. I work till when I close. Sometimes the other needs, you need to go on assignment, you need to look good, you need to get things done, you need to get your mind straight, think on your feet, and get all that done within all that space of time. And so I love the challenge. It's interesting because it also pushes you to work harder. Now, apart from all this, I have to start going to school, and I'm going to pay my fees. I don't need another person. In fact, I can't even start thinking of depending on somebody else. I've done the diploma, the degree, and I'm on to the master's. I want to do international relations in addition, and then law. So that's what I'm going to be doing now. So Esi's natural fruit juices comes very naturally without any form of additives. We do not even add colors. So it's orange, mangoes, pineapple, then we have beetroot. We have a mixture of beetroot, apples, and carrots. We have pineapple, ginger, and then we have others too with a pinch of honey. And so we do that for parties, we do that for weddings, offices, business gatherings, any occasion that you want us to do for you, we do it. It's on time. I am Maame Esi Thompson, a journalist and an entrepreneur, and a girl who works her ass off.